This is Money Made Simple, the financial podcast that keeps it simple and gets to the point.
Kia ora everyone and welcome to Money Made Simple. I'm very excited to be hosting today. I've kicked Liv out for once and I'm here with Rebecca Roberts, who is the manager of the Simplicity Foundation. Hi Bex.
Hi Jenny.
Welcome to the podcast. Before we get into asking you lots of questions about the foundation, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. Very excited. It's my first podcast. I'm an avid podcast listener. Of course, my favourite, Money Made Simple. Yeah, so I have the great privilege of managing Simplicity Foundation, and it is a relatively new pathway for me. I had 20 years working in corporate land as a lawyer and in banking.
Hold that against
Don't hold
you.
that against me. But I really have always wanted to do more in terms of giving back and doing a job that I felt was, much more driven by community. I actually started as a volunteer and I knew one of the previous trustees and came in to just start getting involved, and that has now morphed into my role, which
You
is
actually
wonderful.
took over from me.
I did, Jenny. I was a bit lucky that you got very busy in communicating.
So you've been with the foundation for over 2 years
Yeah,
now.
it'll be 3 years in March next year.
And you work with some amazing organisations and individuals that are working hard to make a difference in their communities. And so we'd love to hear those stories. But for today, we're just going to look at the basics around the foundation. So why we have a foundation, who runs it, how it works, and what sort of charities you're supporting and why. I think we might have mentioned it right back at the beginning that Simplicity is a bit of an oddity in the finance sector because it's a non-profit fund manager and it gives 15% of its fees to the Simplicity Foundation. But I'm not sure that we told listeners that the foundation is actually the owner of Simplicity New Zealand Limited. And that's how Sam and the team set things up back in 2016. And it's quite a unique business model.
Yeah, I wasn't here right at the beginning, but yeah, it's a great model. The foundation was set up at the same time that Simplicity was established. And alongside that ownership structure, there was also a decision made that 15% of the fees charged would come across. So that funding stream has come through from the beginning on the fees paid by the Kiwi Saver and Investment Fund members. So at the beginning, that was a few $1,000s, but it's really grown. Simplicity just turned 7, and so now we are giving away about $500,000 a quarter, $2 million a year. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty significant amount of money, isn't it? And that's what Sam and the other founders wanted, a sort of meaningful and sustainable way to give back. And I know that some Simplicity members are really supportive of everything the foundation is doing, and it might have even been one of the key reasons that they chose to invest with us. But other members sometimes question, particularly recently with the markets being so volatile and the cost of living issues that people are facing, why we're giving money away. But giving back's really baked into the business model, isn't it? And being a non-profit owned by a charity actually has some upsides for members other than just the feel-good factor of giving back. As a charity, we receive support in kind. We have some amazing and skilled volunteers, such as your wonderful self back in the day, that support us. And so these benefits help us keep our costs down. That helps us keep fees low. And so they directly benefit members.
Yeah, totally.
Let's talk more about the foundation and who's behind it.
Cool. Yeah. So, as you say, it is a beneficial structure. And like everything with Simplicity, we try to minimise costs and we make sure that almost all the funding that we get is able to go out and do the most good. So we're a lean team. That's just me as the manager.
A super team of one.
And obviously all the final grant making decisions are made by our wonderful board of trustees, and they're all volunteers, so they all give their time to do that. So really my job as manager is pretty special. I get the opportunity to meet and build relationships with amazing charities that approach us for support, depending on how their programs and the work that they're doing aligns with our giving priorities, and I can talk to that, and what funding we have available. I work with them to develop proposals for the trustees to consider and then make grant decisions about, as well as working with them, tracking the ongoing impact of the work that they're doing and what their needs are. And the trustees, we've currently got 6 trustees, and they come from different backgrounds and areas of interest and expertise. They have the ultimate decision on where the funding goes, how it's distributed. We also have a giving strategy that I work with them on. So it's developing under our pillars of giving where our specific areas of focus are and how we structure that giving. So that's stuff we've been working on as well. And because of its growth in the last 7 years, it's been a great learning process as we go as well. And we generally make all our funding decisions and grant rounds on a quarterly basis. funding accrues over 3 months, and then we pay that money out. So we don't sit on any funding either. We're not building up any kind of endowment fund. It's very much
Get it out the door
get
and
it out
doing
the door,
good.
doing good. Yeah, with that great low-cost model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just talked about the 4 pillars. Can you tell us a bit more about the pillars and why is the foundation focusing on, these areas?
Sure, absolutely. So the 4 pillars are the climate and environment, education, youth development, and homelessness and hunger. Yeah. And those causes were identified by Simplicity members via a survey in 2017 and then in 2020. And we had a list of potential areas that we could focus on, and those were the top 4 in both surveys. And I'll just give a bit more of a flavour around what we're trying to achieve in some of the organisations that we're working with. So with the environment, our aim is to support the conservation and renewal of Aotearoa New Zealand's natural environment and biodiversity. And through that, we're hoping to help support our climate resilience and provide an environment for our native flora and fauna to thrive.
Sounds like a great aim.
Yes. And over the last 3 years, one of our biggest focus has been around funding tree planting. And again, that was kind of a commitment that was made early days, was to plant a native tree for every member of Simplicity, and we're continuing to do that. We've funded over 150,000 trees, and we do that through Trees That Count, which is a platform for local projects to apply for to receive tree funding directly. And we're also now focused on projects that protect and restore diverse natural habitats across the country.
Fantastic. Just going back to the trees, if I am a Simplicity member, and I am, do you know where my tree is? Did you plant a specific tree for me, Bex?
We do, and then we just have a little tag on it that says Jenny's tree. No, we fund many thousands of trees each planting season, but we make sure that we're supporting projects throughout the country. And you can actually go onto the Trees That Count website and click on projects so you can see the diversity and the scale of projects that we've funded throughout.
So what's the second pillar?
The second pillar is youth development. So we support charities working to improve the future of rangatahi in Aotearoa, focusing on those young people who have had the greatest challenges to thrive. And we currently do that by backing long-term programs that support youth mentoring, employability and work transition, and also volunteering and civic engagement. And so some examples of that are our long-term support of the Graham Dingle Foundation and their Career Navigator program, and also Student Volunteer Army, where we've helped them to expand and develop their Service Award program, encouraging young people to volunteer in their communities, but also recognising the skills that they're developing and learning as part of that process and how they can then apply that to future employment and opportunities.
Yeah.
And again, really driving for that into communities which don't have all the advantages of others. Yeah.
Which is very cool. The next pillar is education, and that must align pretty closely with the youth development work that you're supporting.
It does. We're generally supporting programs that improve educational opportunities for rangatahi and others within the community that face barriers to access learning. So that includes scholarships, something like First Foundation is kind of at an individual level, but then something like I Have a Dream, which we've supported for a long time up in Whangarei as well, which is a long-term intervention helping to uplift education within that community. Another cool example I like to talk about in our educational support is the work we've done with Take Two, which is an amazing charity teaching tech skills to justice-impacted people, so people who've been caught up in the criminal justice system.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and they're taking them from the classroom to employment with some of New Zealand's biggest tech companies. And again, alongside Simplicity, believe in the importance of improving financial literacy in all New Zealanders and particularly young people. So yeah, some pretty cool
Very
stuff
cool.
happening out there, and some wonderful people leading these organisations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that brings us to the last pillar.
Yeah, so that is homelessness and hunger, and again, that's really aiming to support those in our community who struggle to meet their basic needs of housing and food security. And we're partnering in this space with organisations and not only support those in immediate need, but where we can also try to seek the systemic causes of some of these issues and reduce the reliance on these interventions over the longer term. And one of the things we've focused on is youth homelessness, again with our kind of youth focus. When you talk to people in that space, there's a real cliff that young people fall off at that time of their lives where they come out of a more supportive situation up to maybe the age of 18. And if you can capture young people at that point, that can actually have a massive impact on long-term outcomes. One of the organisations we've worked with is Vision West and their innovative program called the Mai Whare program, where they're putting tiny homes on host family sites with a whole lot of wraparound support and developing expertise in that space. So
cool. So a young person has their own space, but within
within a host family environment. So yeah, that's been great. On the hunger support side, we've directed our hunger support towards food rescue programs, and that's because they work both to reduce waste and facilitate a wider distribution of kai across a broad range of community groups. We feel that's the most effective way we can kind of help as many people as possible. So you've got that
positive environmental impact.
Yeah, and again, we're sitting up here in Tamaki Makaurau, but your Simplicity members are throughout the country.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like, how can we help at local community level? And one of the things we did after both the Auckland flooding and the cyclones this year was to reach out to those food rescue partners and go, here's some funding to support you guys right now. And we were able to do that pretty quickly because we knew that they were people in their community, they're on the ground, and they know what
doing the mahi.
And they've got the distribution networks. They know how to get stuff out to people.
Yeah, so those are the 4 pillars, and as you said, our own members have sort of focused the giving of the foundation. But once a year, as you mentioned, the foundation does things a little differently, and they ask for members to get involved again, right?
They do, and yeah, this is our Christmas giving, and it's an opportunity for Simplicity members to have their say.
So this is the 4th quarter.
This is the 4th quarter, and it really takes up quite a lot of our homelessness and hunger kind of giving, but a few other areas as well. And what we do is we put together a list of charities for members to choose from. And the last few years, so these are organisations that are on the front line providing food, shelter and support. And so that's through food rescue, city missions, women's refuge. And then in the last year and this year, we've also kind of expanded it to organisations that aren't under our direct pillars, but they're supporting New Zealanders at this time. And that's St John's and Surf Lifesaving. And we've also included support for SPCA and Pet Refuge this year as well.
So if you're talking about $500,000 going to this group of organisations at this time of year, it must make a real difference to them.
It does. They really appreciate our support. And I suppose the other thing that we offer, which is this symbiotic and nice relationship, is just to amplify their message a little bit as another way for us to, showcase to members, these organisations.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool thing to share a bit of Christmas love this time of year. So we've talked about the pillars of giving, and you've given us some really great examples of some of the organisations that you're supporting under those pillars. What sort of support are you offering?
And kind of dancing around that one. Yeah.
What sort of money are we talking?
So the way we structure our giving now, and this has been evolving as we've worked through our strategy with the trustees, is that the majority of our giving, around 80% of it, is through medium and long-term charity partners. So kind of $35,000 to $100,000 a year of funding on an ongoing basis for, often a finite period of time, but for a few years. And the rest, 20%, will be allocated into smaller one-off grants, which equates to about $100,000 a year under each pillar, which will be distributed into smaller grants at a grassroots level because, as I think I mentioned as well, we want to make sure that we're supporting organisations throughout the country.
Yeah.
So this year we trialled introducing a small grants round, and we did that for the environment and youth development, and we set aside $100,000 for each of these pillars to allocate to small projects seeking funding of $5,000 to $20,000 on a one-off basis. And it was a really interesting process because, particularly for the environment, I was inundated with applications from really so many worthy environmental projects. So to give you an idea, I mentioned 100,000. I think the total request that came in was in excess of $600,000.
Wow.
And yeah, very humbling to see how many local groups are doing amazing work to try and repair and rebuild their local environments. It was a very hard process to even decide who we could support. And so, we ended up making kind of a lot of small grants just to really kind of spread the love, but we're still working through, is that the best process moving forward?
Yeah.
We want to be fair and equitable and accessible, so it's balancing all of that and trying to do our job the best we can. And the trustees also really care about impact.
Yeah, and because I know that the foundation gets money from the fees from members, so it's actually revenue of the company that's being donated, but we still really think of it as our members' money. We feel a real responsibility.
Yeah, we see our members as stakeholders, and I think, yes, I agree, but I think the other thing that I always like to think about is that at a per average member level, it's kind of $12 a year or something around that number, $13 a year, but collectively, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So it's a small contribution from each of us.
That gives us the ability to really shift the dial or back some great initiatives. Yeah. It's pretty special.
So you often get to hear Sam and others in the organisation talk about the big vision that we have for Simplicity. What can you tell us about the kind of vision or plans for the foundation?
Yeah, we're independent, very much so, but, we do see ourselves part of that broader Simplicity ecosystem. Yeah, so the way I see it, the foundation and its ability to fund more broadly and with greater impact has really grown significantly over the last few years, and we're focused on maximising our impact. And the other thing I really like to think about is this long-term structure. So we're not beholden to a board or a corporate entity saying, oh, we're going to fund this or that.
Chopping and
changing. We're here for the long haul. So this long-term relationship model is really good for us. And so for me, it's really continuing to build and strengthen our relationships with our charity partners, existing and new, and the broader funding network in Aotearoa. We know we can make more of a difference as well when we partner with others, and we like doing that. And I think we're still new players on the block, but we've got a great long-term model. The other wonderful thing about being in the position that we're in is that you get to meet a lot of people and see a lot of what's going on, and a lot of people that are running their own charities and doing this work on the ground, they're just in their lane doing their mahi.
They're in the trenches,
yeah,
as
they
really
really
say.
are. So for me, and I'm a connector, I love connecting people, it's also drawing some connections and going, that's great what you're doing. Let me connect
I had a conversation about that with someone else.
Let me connect you with this person. So there's those kind of value adds that are really cool too. And I think the foundation really enhances the Simplicity model and can demonstrate what this not-for-profit structure can really achieve for the community as a whole. And I find that that's something to be really proud of around this model. It's the power of the collective.
Yeah.
And the other thing we love doing is letting the Simplicity members know what we're doing and why. Not everyone cares, and that's fine, but for those that do, to share that information. But it's also a great way of showcasing some of the organisations that we support, and often when we talk to them, it's like, hey, this is awesome, and by the way, we can help share your story off our platform as well. Yeah, so there's all of those things we will continue to grow, learn, and love.
Cheesy much? No, that sounds like a great vision for the future.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bex.
It's been a pleasure, Jenny.
You would never know that was your first podcast
I was
ever.
a podcast professional.
I really can't wait to have you back. It's been great to talk to you, and I'll definitely have you back again. And we can talk in a bit more depth about some of the particular projects and people that we're working alongside.
Totally. Yeah.
Be great to have you.
Good
okay.
stuff.
And next week, it's our last podcast of the year, and Liv will be back. I'm sure you'll be relieved to hear that. And we're going to look at the very topical issue of financial scams. So we will talk to you then. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast contains personal opinions and is intended to provide educational information only. It doesn't relate to your particular financial situation or goals and is not financial advice or recommendations. Simplicity New Zealand Limited is the issuer of the Simplicity KiwiSaver scheme and investment funds. For product disclosure statements, please visit Simplicity's website simplicity.kiwi.